Hey, welcome everyone. Glad to have you all on board for today's Microsoft Teams introduction training. The response rate that I got from the Facebook post was overwhelmingly for this application, and trust me, I completely understand why. So for those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Scott Kinsella. Some of you know me by my nickname, but let's not talk about that right now. It's not a bad nickname. But anyways, I am conducting this training session for you today. Again, some of you know me, some of you don't. So for those of you who do not know me, I am a Microsoft certified trainer. I specialize in all of the end user applications. I've been certified as a trainer from Microsoft for over 10 years, but I've been teaching these Office products since Office 4.3, which came out in like 1996. So I've got over 23 years experience dealing with Microsoft and all of their end user products. So what that means is that I don't teach administrators and database people and all your high-end techie. I deal with the public like y'all today, and I love it. I enjoy it. Some of you on today's training are from previous jobs and previous classes, and it's great to see you. Great to see y'all here on board again. While I am a certified trainer from Microsoft, I don't actually work for Microsoft. I work for a company here in Maryland called Planet Technologies, and I work as a federal contractor. And I've been assigned to different projects. So that's just a little bit about me as far as my professional experience. So before we get the actual session started today, a few ground rules. First off, I've got you all on mute. Please keep it that way. With so many people online, if somebody unmutes, it just gets a little confusing and I don't know who's talking. So please keep yourself muted. If you do have a question, type it in the Zoom chat window. You could type it over in Teams too, since we're doing Teams today. Either one of those will work, but just type your question out and I'll try to get to it. Feel free to use Teams. I invited you all to my demo team. I will keep that out there for a while. So you're free to kind of log in and play around if you do feel the need to do that. Just remember though, if you do post anything in Teams, it will be part of this recording. So just keep that in mind. The Zoom window is not in, will not be in the recording, but Teams will be. For your friends and everyone else later, this will be posted to my YouTube channel later on today or tomorrow. Just depends on when I get around to kind of finessing things. Also, I will stick around at the end of this training for as long as I need to answer questions. That's always one of the things I do for my classes. Sometimes I stay as long as a half an hour just answering people's questions. I feel that is kind of my thing to do because you've got me here and so on and so forth. So we got a lot of topics to cover today. There's a lot of stuff here. I'm going to move through some of it fairly quickly, but just so you have an idea of what we're going to look at today, first off, we'll talk about starting and logging into Teams. We'll get familiar with the Teams interface, what is around there and what are the different parts. We'll learn about the command and search box. What does that do for us? We'll talk about using the apps within the app. I think that is one of the kind of the confusing things about Teams is, well, what is it? And I'll talk about that shortly. We'll talk about the activity feed. What does that do for us in Teams? How does chat work? Okay, what's all the deal with the chat part? Some of you figured that out. Part two, if you want to call it that. I just had to split this up between two slides because there was too much for one slide, and it's one of my PowerPoint things to not cram slides. But anyways, then we'll actually spend a good chunk of time, I think in the second half of class today, really trying to understand the Teams structure and what does that mean? I think that's really the major part of the confusion, and it's the newest part. This is the thing that we're not all familiar with. So we really want to get a good understanding of the structure of Teams, channels, and tabs, and what all that means in the context of using this product. We'll talk about conversations, how to collaborate on files, and then some of your settings. So we got a lot to cover today. Again, feel free to ask your questions, but if I kind of put you off to the end, don't be offended. It's just that we got a lot of material to cover. All right, so let's jump over to, first off, I'm going to start off, oops, that's in the wrong window, so let's bring that over here. So Microsoft Teams is a fairly new-ish product from Microsoft. It is part of the Office 365 suite of products. Now, one of the interesting things about Teams is that there is a web version of it and there is a desktop version. And sure, we have that for a lot of the Microsoft applications. For instance, if you look right here, Outlook and Word and Excel and PowerPoint and OneNote all have online equivalents. But all of these online equivalents to the regular desktop products are different. They are scaled back, they don't have as many features, they're kind of a lightweight version of the products, as opposed to the full-blown version of, for instance, like Word, like this, which has everything. The version of Word here that you have in the Microsoft Office portal is a lightweight version. What's different about Teams is that Teams, the web version, and Teams, the desktop version, are nearly identical. They are like 99.9% identical in how they work or run. So you can use either version and be fine with that. You can get to all of this web stuff by going to portal.office.com. If you have an existing Office 365 account, you would have those credentials and you can log in as you see I have. If you're a home user, there is a free version of Teams out there. I will admit that I am not overly familiar with it. I primarily work with commercial and government clients and have not really had the time to play around with the free version. So I'm not all sure how that works or what the limitations are there. I've not brushed up on that. So I apologize for not knowing those details off the top of my head. So the first thing to know is that Teams can be in the web version or desktop. Notice Teams slows down my system. Yeah, that's possible. I think right now it's going to be more, there's just so much internet traffic going on with things. We'll talk, I can address that a little bit more later, Alicia. Now, I prefer to use the desktop version of Teams. You can use whatever version that you want. And actually, if you do start Teams from the portal, you'll get a little nag message that actually says use the desktop version instead of the web version. Now, as far as responsiveness, yeah, I've experienced with both. There can be lag in either things. Realize that, you know, unlike Word, which runs primarily on your computer and it's not accessing the internet for stuff, Teams, since it's a communications-based product, is going to be trying to use the internet for a lot of things. So just like with other websites and web-based apps, where things can slow down or seem to get a little sluggish or whatever else, you're going to have that with Teams just by its core nature of how it goes. Okay. All right, so let me now bring up Teams itself. So here we go. And the first thing I want to do is explain the interface. So Teams overall, unlike other Microsoft products, has a very minimal interface, and that's for a reason. You may have noticed in a lot of the Office 365 products, if you've used them, Microsoft, and they're even doing this in SharePoint, which I'll talk about tomorrow. Microsoft's philosophy for much of the 2000s and 2010s was to kind of just give you everything and have, you know, like, look, here is all this stuff you can do and look at all these options and stuff like that, and it's all easily within reach. But the problem was is that unless you were really familiar with the product, it could be very kind of, oh my gosh, where do I even start? So overall, not just in Teams, but overall throughout Microsoft products, you may notice that they are reducing the amount of clutter in interfaces and really kind of moving things to menus and hiding stuff. And that can be a little frustrating for us users that might be used to having things at an easy reach. But think about the folks that are often put off by big interfaces. And that's definitely the case here in Teams. If you notice, there's no, when you're in the desktop version, there's no menu bar up at the top. It's very minimal. And Teams makes a lot of use of the three-dot menus or the more menus. So we're going to see that as we go through the product, that there's a lot of that stuff all over the place. So our top bar up at the top of Teams is very minimal. We've got a button here that we can start new chats, so I'll get to that. We'll talk about the command and search box that's right here. We'll talk about that shortly. The one lone menu up here that you actually have is hiding under your avatar or your initials. You can see I've uploaded a picture. The one lone menu that's up there is that you can actually click your picture and there's a menu here, and that is really the only menu that's up along the top. And there's a few things here. We'll cover a few of these later on as we go through stuff. Otherwise, the rest of the interface here is also pretty standard Microsoft in that it is divided up into 3 sections. Along the left-hand side here, you'll see what's called the rail. Okay, this is where the different applications inside of Teams lives. And I'll explain that more in just a moment. Then whenever you pick one of these applications, you'll have the navigation pane next to that, which will show you the different areas that you're in. So when I switch over to chat, here is the stuff here. If I switch over to the Teams app, okay, that navigation panel changes. So again, we'll see that as we go through the examples. Lastly, then, once I pick something in the navigation pane, we'll see that over here in the content pane. So this is where we really do a lot of our work, is that we see everything in the content pane over here. Okay. Again, overall, this is a very, very simple interface, and that's on purpose. And there's not a lot of menus right in front of you, and realize that you'll find them often by hovering over things. You'll see 3-dot menus all over the place. Okay. All right, next, let's now come back up to the search bar up top and just talk about this. Search or type a command. Now, there's actually a bunch of, this box actually has 3 functions up there that it can do from the top. First off, yeah, it's your search box. So whenever I want to search for anything, so if I want to search for the word training, where might that appear as far as different users or other stuff, I can type that. What's a little bit different about the search box here in Teams is that it's not quite the instant search that you're used to in Google or in other places. That is that I can type a word up here and you will get a few search results, but it's not the true full list. And to get a full list of results, you actually have to press enter, and that will actually bring up, if you notice here, that actually brings up a search panel that actually shows results. So that's something that's a little different than what, again, you know, when you go to Google and type in a search term, it somehow reads your mind and has a list there. You know, you type the letter T and it knows you're searching for, I don't know what. But you kind of get my point here, is that in Teams, it's not quite an instant search when you do that. All right, the second thing that this box can do is that we can type what are called slash commands. So when I type a slash, you'll see a list of commands here of things that you can do. Now this harkens back to those of us that have been around the internet for a while. And back in the day when you did a Unix-based chat on things like IRC, where it was all text, when you wanted to issue a command, you type a / and then the command. And interestingly enough, we have the same idea here in Teams, is that if you type a / there is a bunch of commands and things that you can do right from the command box up there. Now this is a point that I forgot to bring up earlier. There are different versions of Teams out there, and it depends on whether you've got the home free version, whether you work for a regular company, or like me, you're a federal contractor. There are different versions of Teams that have different capabilities. So that's going to, as I go through this training today, if you're kind of looking at your own company's version of Teams, be aware that things could be different. The full list of commands is available as soon as you type the /. So right now, when I type that /, these are all the commands. And what's actually kind of interesting is that I'm using my own personal version of Teams here. At my government job, when I'm on site, this list is about 2/3 the length of that, because there are not as many commands available in the government version. So when you type that /, you're going to get the commands that are available. You can also search that on the internet. You just go Teams /commands, and you'll get a list, but you'll also see them right here. That is the list of commands. Now, the other type of commands that you can do from this box are what we call commands or mentions. And this is a way to either start a chat with somebody or send them a message without actually having to click on the new chat box. Or again, depending on your installation, it is a way to, as you can see here, you can get different things like news and stocks and weather, and you can do different types of things right from the box with an command. Again, if you've got the government version of Teams, you're not going to get a lot of this stuff down. You're not going to get a lot of these commands here, but you'll at least be able to chat. So that does several different things. So again, if you type the symbol, you'll see a list of stuff that you can do. So you can see that in my Teams installation, I actually have a bunch of training accounts that I can use, but I could also access any of this other stuff that's here. Okay. All right, we'll hit that box a few other times as we go through some of the other examples that I'm going to go through today. All right. Okay, now The next key thing to really kind of understand, let's come back over here to the rail and really kind of break this down. So what's a little tricky about describing what Teams is to people is that Teams is a lot like Outlook in the following sense. Now, we don't think about Outlook like this anymore. Outlook is actually multiple products in one, right? We don't think of it that way anymore because it's been that way for so long. But back when I got started in training 23 years ago, um, Outlook didn't exist. We had Microsoft Mail and there was a calendar product and everything was separate. They were all separate applications. And until Outlook came along, that was the first time Microsoft took all these kind of sort of related but disparate things and piled them in one place. Teams is the same idea. Teams is not one thing. It's actually multiple products in one. And just like in Outlook, where you've got down along the bottom, all the different little things that you can access and do, here in Teams, they all happen to be along the side. And then I've got an activity feed, which is just like Facebook. I've got chat, which is just like Skype for Business or Link, if you're still on the older version there. We actually have a Teams part of Teams, which is where the team stuff happens. We have a calendar app. This actually taps into your Outlook calendar. So this is not a new calendar. This is coming directly from Outlook. There is a calls section. This is if your company has integrated Teams into your voice over IP system. For most of us, you're not going to really do much with this. I've not actually worked anywhere yet where they've done that sort of integration, so this just doesn't do a whole lot. We've got a files app inside of Teams, which actually allows me to access files that are in OneDrive and in SharePoint. So you can see that Teams is really just kind of grabbing stuff from a lot of different places. And that's another thing I want you to notice is that what's very, very clever about Teams is that rather than inventing new things, Microsoft simply created an interface to other stuff that already exists. So for instance, Teams integrates into your Outlook calendar. Teams uses OneDrive and SharePoint for its file storage, okay, rather than creating new things. Question about team calendars. That actually relates to groups. That is a limitation in Teams right now, is that there is no true team calendar in Teams. The team calendar actually appears over in Outlook with Outlook groups. Whether you can get to that or not depends on some settings at your company. So let's talk about that. Bring that question up again after class or after the session, and I can address that more, but I know what you're talking about. Now, if you have, I see somebody saying I have no calendar or calls button. That's fine. Remember, different versions of Teams are going to have different things. So your company or the free version may not have certain things at all. So for instance, if you don't actually, if you're using the free version, obviously you're not going to have a calendar because you don't actually have an Outlook account tied to that. So it does get a little complicated. I know we're all coming from different situations. So again, please keep in mind that I'm going to try to stick to what's common to everybody, but realize that every company can set up certain things about Teams differently, okay? All right, but good questions. Keep asking. I don't know this, don't either way. It's because we are guests in this team. If you switched your own, we'll see. Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, when you're in a guest on my team, that's another story, and we'll talk about that. Okay, so there we go. So Teams is actually multiple products in one. Now, for the purposes of this introduction training today, there's not enough time to go through everything that's here. So we're going to go through activity, chat, and Teams, just the first three up at the top. If we have time, we'll touch a little bit more on files, but I doubt that we're going to get there. That's part two, or the Beyond the Basics class. Okay, so let's start with the activity feed, because this is really kind of the easiest one to understand. So this is literally like Facebook or Twitter or your Instagram feed or anything along those lines. That's exactly what this is that in Teams, as you start to use this product, there's going to be things going on. There's going to be people replying to stuff and adding new posts and doing all kinds of things like that, just like you have on Facebook. So in Teams, you'll have this activity feed. Now, again, mine's pretty lightweight here because I've been using it, but not this. This is my copy here at home. So that's why I was inviting all of you in here to get a little bit of stuff in ahead of time. But at your own company or whatever else, this feed will start to build up with lots of different stuff. And it's, new posts, new replies. There's actually 8 different categories of things that you can view here. And once this does start to get filled up, once there is more things, if you want to narrow down or search for something, what you can do is click the filter symbol here. Okay, when you click that filter symbol, the first thing you can do is basically do a search and say, okay, I'm looking for a certain keyword. So if I type the word Zoom, okay, there's no matches. Let me use the word file. If I could put my fingers in the right place, try one more time. Okay, there's a message that's got the word file in it. So first, when you click on that filter symbol, it's like a search. Okay, in this case, though, it is instant search. Now, you'll notice 3-dot menu. Always investigate those 3-dot menus because there's probably something, there might be more good stuff there. And in this case, there is, because another way that you can narrow down your activity feed, gosh, I wish Facebook would do this, is that I can say out of one of 8 categories, the types of things I want to see in my feed right now. Like show me all of my @mentions, or just show me the replies, or just show me reactions. Now, missed calls and voicemails are not going to work for most of us, but there you go. So I could say, all right, just show me any time somebody @mentioned me. Oops, there are no @mentions, okay? So you can filter your feed. And when you're done, you can just click the exit there. Now, another thing to click on whenever you're in a product like this is not only 3-dot menus, but drop downs, right? Whenever you see a little caret, and that's C-A-R-E-T, not the Bugs Bunny carrot, there's a drop-down menu here. And in your activity feed, what's kind of funny about this is that there's the activity feed, but there is also a part of the activity feed called My Activity. Talk about redundancy. The My Activity is like a reverse Facebook feed, if there is such a thing. Actually, what it's like on Facebook is your activity log. If you go to your actual Facebook profile and then click on activity log, you'll see all the things that you've been doing. So in this case, I can go to My Activity, and I can see all the stuff that I've been doing. Okay. And by the way, I forgot to mention this before. Any of the stuff that appears here, you can click on it and have it display in the right-hand pane. And what's also very clever about this, if you watch closely, is that when I click on an item to display it, the item will highlight in a pale yellow and slowly fade away, right? It's not going to be obnoxious and blink, but if you watch closely, like when I click this, there, it's going to go to that message, there it's yellow, and if you watch, it'll just slowly fade out, so you know what to zoom in on or look at when you select something from your feed. Okay, and we're gonna see this in other places in Teams as well. I almost said Zoom. You're gonna see this in other places in Teams as well. Okay. So from the activity feed standpoint, there's not a whole lot to say other than this is just where to look for stuff. Okay, this is where I can see what's going on for me, either in the feed or I can see the things that I've done. When I select something, it's going to show up in this panel over here, and dealing with that, we'll get to that later. How do I deal with the different things that have been posted? Okay, it's just like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or any of that sort of stuff. Okay. All right, let's move on to chat. So this is the part of Teams that for those of you that work in corporate environments like myself, this is the part of Teams that is replacing or is in the process of replacing Skype for Business. In case you haven't heard or was not aware, Microsoft is phasing out Skype for Business. It's going away in terms of Teams. I think that will happen later this year. Some companies are moving forward much more quickly on that. Some companies like the government agency I was just at are actually running both for the time being. They're running both Skype for Business and Teams, but the plan was to eventually turn off Skype and just use Teams. What you're doing is going to vary with you, again, with your situation. So just be aware of that. Now, There are some things about Teams chat that are similar to Skype, and there are some things that are very different. So first off, let's take a look at this navigation pane. This is similar and different from Skype for Business. Actually, let me work backwards. You'll notice at the top of the chat window that there are two tabs up here. One is called Recent, and the other one is called Contacts. The contacts view of chat is the part of this section that is most like Skype for Business. So in Skype for Business, when you would build up your contact list there and have your different groups and stuff, this part of Teams is exact mimic of that. So over here, I can create groups. If you look down at the bottom, you'll see it says create a new contact group. If you click on any of these groups, you can add contacts. So this is literally right out of the Skype for Business playbook. This is where I can build up kind of my address book or contact list of people. What's new here in the Teams aspect of chat is this tab called Recent. This tab functions much more like what you see in Microsoft Office, like in Word or Excel or PowerPoint. You know, whenever you start up one of those products, the first thing you see is a list of files, right? Hey, here's the things you most recently opened. We're now doing, Teams is now doing that same sort of idea in that up along the top, if you've had some chats, you'll notice there's a recent section of chats here. If you don't have any at all, there'll also be a suggested section here. Okay, question, what about Yammer? Will that be staying and will it be integrated into Teams? Ooh, good question, Anne. It is not going away because it's a different kind of product. I don't use it. I'm not familiar with Yammer. As far as I know, I don't think there's any plans to get rid of it. I know it does integrate into Teams, just like the other stuff, but not as directly as Skype for Business, because Teams is meant to be a direct replacement of Skype, whereas it's not meant to be a direct replacement for Yammer. Though you could do a lot of the stuff that you do with Yammer, you could do it with Teams. But I think you can just do a quick Google search to find out more. Again, honestly, I've not worked anywhere yet that uses Yammer. Okay, so this section here, coming back to the chat here, works like when you go into an Office application, okay? Now, the other thing you can do here, just like you do in Office applications, is that, you know, in an Office application, that recent list, things can fall off of it, right? You know, in Microsoft Word, only so many files are gonna appear in that list, and eventually they're gonna go away. Unless I do what? Who knows that feature over in the Office products? With that recent list, what can I do to something to keep it there so it doesn't go anywhere? It's a nice little short word. What can you do? Audience participation time. Pin it. Yes, thank you, Mr. Barker. Yeah, you can pin documents to the top. Guess what? You can do the same thing here. So I can take this chat with Chrissy, and I can click the three dot menu and say pin it. And now that chat is pinned up at the top and it will stay there forever. Whereas the recent list here will display as many as it can until I run out of room and chats are going to fall off, okay? So the contacts view of chats is the part that's most like Skype for Business, literally is a direct mapping, okay? The recent tab up top is very much like this idea of documents in Word or Excel, in that I can pin and look at recent chats over here. Now, the next thing that is different about chat in Teams as opposed to Skype for Business is what we call persistent chat. In Skype for Business, when you have a chat with somebody, as long as that chat window stays open, I can see everything we've talked about. Once I close that window, that chat history goes away. Now, depending on your company's settings, that chat history may go to a folder in Outlook called conversation history. Now, again, every company and federal agency and stuff can configure this differently. Your agency or your company may choose to not preserve any of that. A lot of government agencies do for FOIA reasons. That's Freedom of Information Act for those of you who are not government nerds like myself. Point being is that at a minimum, once you close a Skype chat, it's not available in Skype anymore. So if I was talking to Paul and we're having a Skype chat and then I close the window and then Paul messages me 5 minutes later, well, it's going to start up a new window and the history from before is not going to be in that window. Okay. Teams is different. Teams does what we call persistent chat. Once you start a chat with somebody, that entire history is here forever. Now, again, this is going to depend on your corporate settings and records management. Again, there's a lot of factors that go into this. For instance, the government agency that I was at, you're not allowed to delete any messages. The default is you can. I think Matt deleted one of his messages here on this chat earlier because I've allowed it. But your administrators can configure this very differently to say you cannot delete things or you can. So again, as we say in internet parlance, your mileage may vary, okay? But overall, as long as I don't do anything with this chat window with Matt, this is going to stay here forever. So, 3 months later, Matt could jump on here and we could have a chat and my chat history is going to be right here. I think that is ultra convenient because, hey, now I don't have to scroll back. What did we talk about a week ago? Hey, what was that URL that you sent me? I actually previously worked with somebody, again, at Department of Energy. He just, when he wanted to send somebody a link, he'd send it through Skype for Business. And that always annoyed me because if I closed the window and didn't click on the link right away or whatever, I'd lose the information. Like, dude, email. Now, I don't have to worry about that. In Teams, if he shoots me a link via Teams, voila, it stays there. If someone is offline, will they see your message chat once they are back up? Yep, absolutely. Teams is a server product. It's just like email, okay? It's a client server based product, just like Outlook or SharePoint. So if you're not online when things happen, when you log in, it'll be there. Then why do we use Skype? That's why it's going away. I don't know about unreliable. Well, I wouldn't call that unreliable. I would just say it's just different. That's just how it is. Companies decide to do things different ways. Skype was just, and again, to the point with Skype, remember I said earlier, depending on your company's settings, Skype chats can be found in the Outlook conversation history folder, but that is again up to each company to decide whether they want that or not. In the federal space, yes, they would always do that because you got to preserve everything, but your company might say, we don't need that. So that's yes, similar to Facebook Messenger. Yes, oh yes, Paul. Oh, that's an excellent way to compare it. Yes, Teams chat is very much like Facebook Messenger. By the way, where do you think they probably got the idea from? I mean, they all steal from each other, okay? All right, now here in chat, it's pretty straightforward. You just go down to the bottom and you click and type. Oh, yeah, you just click and type. So down here at the bottom, I can do a message here. Now I can actually do a message with any of you that I've added. So I don't know who's all in here right now. Chrissy, are you on my list somewhere? Ms. Kuchnicki, are you on today? There she is. Chrissy is here. So I am going to use Chrissy. Chrissy's way back in my history, back when I first started being a trainer back in 1990. Let's see, no, we didn't work together till 97, was it? But yeah, Chrissy and I go way back. So I can just type down here, hello, and it's just simple chat. Okay. How fancy you want to get with chats, of course, is completely up to you. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of icons down here at the bottom. Now, if I just want to do basic messages, I can. Now, again, just like we see on Facebook chat and iMessage and other places, people can see when I can see what, hey, stop making me look old. Well, stop. Look at all this gray hair. I'm not exactly a spring chicken anymore. Anyways, it's chat. You can do other things to this though. Now, like we have in Facebook, I can hover over a message and I can react to messages just like you do in your Facebook feed. Again, if you hover over a message, there's a little 3-dot menu here. And you can do a few of these. You can do a few other options there, which we can explore at a later time. Don't have time to get into in this class. Other things that I can do while I'm here, I can actually format my message. So if I click that first icon down there at the bottom, Skype can do the same thing. You can actually add formatting to your message. So if you want to get fancy and bold, italics, and underline, and color and sizes, you can do all of that business. You can set delivery options. Okay, is this a standard, important, urgent? It's just like over with email. Do I want to send a file? I can attach files here. Now, this is a good thing. My main problem with emailing files to people, of course, is that when you email a file to somebody, you're sending them a copy, right? Mine stays where it is, and they're ending up with a copy. And that's a problem, because if somebody then edits the copy and sends it back to me, and I want, it's not good for collaboration. What's really cool here now in Teams is that if I do share a file with Chrissy, rather than emailing it to her, it's going to store the file on OneDrive and then just share the file out with her. So basically what'll happen is that when she accesses the file through the chat and I access it through the chat, we're looking at the same file. So we are truly collaborating in that sense, as opposed to I email something to somebody, they're working on a copy, we're not collaborating. So that is one of the cool features, and we'll address this more over in the Teams section part of Teams. But again, Teams is very much into this idea, since it's a collaboration product, of reducing copies of things, and rather we should be sharing. Right? Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with emailing a file to somebody if they just need it for their own reference. But if you're collaborating with somebody, you really do want to share. Question: will copy paste into a message keep the source formatting? Maybe, because the formatting characteristics of Teams is a bit different. At the worst, you can try it. Just realize that not all formatting from Word is going to translate into Teams. So Matt, I would just say give that a shot. Quite honestly, in chat, who really needs formatting? I mean, not to diss anybody's needs for that, but look, we're just talking here. This is just chat. And quite honestly, we're not writing novels. We're not writing documents in a chat. So personally, I don't feel a lot of formatting should be necessary. It's more time. Like, look, write what you have to write and be done with it. And that's my opinion. You may disagree with me, and that's totally cool. Okay. For me, look, chat is just meant to be chat. We're just going to write stuff back and forth. I don't need to put a whole formatted thing in here. If I really do need something with formatting for the chat, I'm going to put it in a Word document and share the document. That's where it comes to that. But good question, Matt. Honestly, I think it'll preserve some of it, but not all of it. Just depends on what you did. Okay. Other things, I can add in emojis. You can do GIFs or GIF files, depending on how you prefer to pronounce it. Some of these fun features can be turned off by your administrators. There are stickers. That's another fun thing that we can do here that, again, can be turned off. All right. I can also invite to a meeting. This integrates with Stream, and you can also do something here called praise. All right. So there's a lot of fun stuff that we can do over here that if we were doing an entire class just about the chat aspect, I could get into all of those things. I just want to do a basic intro. There's a lot more stuff I still need to get to, but realize that this is just the main chat. Oh, one other thing a couple other things I want to point out before I need to move on to the Teams part. You can also, just like you could in Skype for Business, you can do more than just chat. I could have a video call with Chrissy. I could do an audio call or via the computer, since I'm not integrated into the phone system. But Chrissy and I could still have an audio call through the computer if you both have microphones and headsets. I could also do a screen sharing session. Okay, I could share my screen with Chrissy and we could be talking and collaborating. As a matter of fact, the classes for the next couple days, I'm going to use Teams meetings for those classes. Just so you know, I couldn't use Teams for the meeting today because I need to show you the Teams window. And if I'm doing a Teams meeting, I can't show you the Teams window. So that's why we're using Zoom today. Otherwise, I will be using Teams for the other trainings. So anyways, there's lots of fun stuff that I can do here. Any other questions about chat before we move on to the Teams part of Teams? There's a lot of stuff here. These are the highlights. Again, I could do a full 90-minute class just on chat, surprisingly. Any questions? What about that exclamation point? That's just like doing that's a flag, just like in Outlook, where you could have normal, high, and low priority. Oh, no, that's okay. It's okay to ask. This does, it kind of flags the message as standard or important. And you'll see there's another one there called urgent. And the recipient is notified every 2 minutes for 20 minutes. So the recipient will keep getting a notification on their screen and in their activity feed. Very obnoxious. Yes, very obnoxious. As with all things, use stuff like that sparingly. Okay, you will annoy the heck out of somebody if you use that too much. It's just like an email. When typing, you explain why you're using Zoom today. Because if I was doing a Teams meeting, if I was hosting this training session using Teams, I wouldn't be able to show you the other parts of Teams because Teams goes into the meeting interface and then I can't show you what I'm doing. It's kind of like a Teams inside a Teams, and you can't do that. Yeah, so I had to use a different product. So that's why I'm using Zoom today. WebEx actually has that ability. WebEx actually allows you to show the WebEx window inside of WebEx, but Teams does not have that capability. So I could have done a Teams meeting, but you wouldn't be able to see what I'm doing inside of Teams while we're having the meeting. So that's why I had to use Zoom today. I do like Zoom. I mean, I use all these products. They've all got pluses and minuses. There's stuff I like about WebEx. There's stuff I like about Zoom. There's stuff I like about Teams. That's just how it all goes. Okay, we got to move on. All right, so let's talk about the Teams part of Teams, because that's probably what you want to know the most about. But before we do that, I got to explain some terminology. So let's bring up another window. And by the way, this outline that I have here on my screen is available. I'll show you where it is. You can download it from the team. All right. So before we venture into the Teams part of Teams, here is what we need to understand. And this is why I think a lot of people are mystified about it, because this is new. You know, look, an activity feed is easy to understand. A lot of us use Facebook and Twitter and all that sort of stuff. So an activity feed, not hard to understand. Chat, not hard to understand. Most of us have used chat products for years. Easy to understand. Teams part of Teams, new. So let's talk about what this all means. So in the context of Teams, we have we have a hierarchical structure that breaks down into 3 parts. And that is, we have a team. Within a team, we have at least one or multiple channels. And inside of a channel, we have content tabs which is where we actually do our work. Okay, so let's back up and talk about what each of these means. A team is nothing but a group of people. That's it. Okay. When I create a team inside of Teams, all I'm doing is I'm taking a group of people and saying, we are a team. In a lot of ways, it's just basically like a distribution list in Outlook. And actually, I'm not wrong when I say that, but that's for another time. Okay. Technically, what we're doing is we're creating an Office 365 group, topic for another day. But anyways, a team is nothing but a group. That's it. When I say I've got a team, I'm taking people and putting them on the team. Just like I did with all of you by posting your email addresses, I was inviting you to the team. Now, you all are guests, and we'll talk about access differences later. But basically, y'all are part of my team. Your team members can be people you work with that are in your same Office 365 tenant or at your company or whatever. Depending on your company or government settings, it may allow guests, okay? Some companies and whatnot do not allow guests. Some do. So again, your mileage is going to vary. So for my setup here for this training, yes, I turned on the back end in the Teams at admin console, I said, yes, guests allowed and blah, blah, blah. Obviously, you know, for my setup here, I'm a one-person company when it comes to this setup. I didn't want to use my Planet Technologies stuff for personal things. So I have my own since I'm a Microsoft trainer. Hey, they give us this stuff. Anyways, a team is just nothing but a group of people. That's it. So if you've got a group of people that you work with at work and you all do a lot of different stuff, you only need one team. One of the mistakes I've seen people doing is that they create a team for every project that's going on. But if the members of those teams are all the same, you're wasting overhead. You don't really need to do that. Okay. Um, the team should be, oh, sorry, question here. Tyler, can guests be invited without providing their email ahead of time? No. You have to have an email address to invite the guests. That's how it works, because something has to be sent to your email in order. You guys all got those emails. Something has to be sent. So the only way I can invite you is by way of email. That's it. There's no other way to do it, because there has to be the message goes out from Teams itself. Like those messages you guys all got, I didn't write those. Those come from Microsoft. So there's a bunch of stuff in there. Then you have to click on it and go through the procedure. Does that hold true for meetings? No. Good question. Meetings are different because it's in that case, Teams meetings are like WebEx and this Zoom meeting here. And that is the one part of Teams that's open to everybody. Because in that case, you're not creating a team, you're using a different part of Teams. You're using the meetings part. The Teams part of Teams, you've got to be a member. Okay? Are the teams defined by the team or by the user of Teams? In other words, once a team is established, is the same team for all participants, or is it defined by the person who established the team? So we're getting a little bit into the territory of a different class, but so you understand is that a team has an owner or multiple owners depending on what the first person does. So for instance, over here, this demo team, I created it, okay? I'm adding the people to it. Okay, so I am the team owner and everybody on the team sees the same members. Again, here is where you're going to have differences between companies. Some companies will not allow regular users to create teams. They will say, if you want to create a team, tell us who you want on the team and who the owner is, and we'll set it up for you. Other companies are allowing end users to set up their own teams. Okay, so again, your mileage is going to vary. And this is where you have to be careful if it's allowed that anybody can set up a team, make sure that you don't have multiple people setting up the same teams for the same thing, because then you're going to end up with multiple teams and you can't combine them. So you're kind of getting to, Matthew, you were kind of getting to one of the points I was going to bring up about creating teams, is that, yeah, exactly. You're going to have to make a choice. Now, every company I've been at so far is allowing end users to create teams. They feel that that's just a little easier to do, and then they'll clean up the mess later. You may disagree, and that's completely fine. But to my overall point, a team, you shouldn't have multiple teams with the same people unless they really are kind of truly different sorts of things, okay? And there are cases for that, and I don't want to get into the nitty gritty. So here's an example I like to use. Let's say I'm a project manager and we've got 5 different projects that we're working on. A mistake that people have been making is that they'll go into teams and they'll create a team for each project. But if it's basically the same people in every project, you shouldn't be doing that. What you should be doing is create one team with all of your people on it, and then you create, here's my segue into the next part, channels. Channels are the different work areas or interest areas of my team. So again, let's use the project manager idea. That's a really good one, okay? I'm a project manager, and there are 3 projects that my team is working on. So what I'll do is I'll create that team, and then inside of the team, I'm going to create channels for every project. And those channels are going to be the interest areas. That's where the activity is going to happen. So for instance, in the demo team that I set up over here, if you look, I did this also, this is similar to something I did at a different client, is I set up channels for the different products. So as a trainer, I had a training channel, and I said, okay, I'm going to make an Excel channel, a Word channel, a SharePoint channel, and those are the interest areas for those products. So if you want to talk about Excel, go to the Excel channel. You want to talk about SharePoint, go to the SharePoint channel. You want to talk about Word, go to the Word channel. So as a project manager, we could have the same thing. I could say, okay, for this project, we're going to do all our stuff in this channel. And for this project, it's going to be in this channel. And in this project, it's going to be this channel. And the nice part about that is that everybody on the team can access all the stuff across those channels. Now, if you truly need to limit people's access to information, there are two options. You could set up a different team, or if you are a commercial client, you can do something called private channels. And that does allow you to limit who can be in a channel. That feature is not available for government yet, but will be sometime later this year. So you have to, so you do have to think about when setting up your proper setup. And personally, my advice is the fewer teams, the better. Okay, you want to have less teams, more channels. Okay, and there's a whole lot of background reasons for that that I don't have time to get into. Okay, all right, so we've got two levels here. So anyone in a team can access any channel. Yes, that is correct at this time, unless if you're a commercial client, you do what's called a private channel. And in a private channel, yes, you can say, okay, of my 10 team members, only these 5 can access that channel. But you can't pick somebody who would be outside of the team. So for instance, what I can't do with a private channel is say, I want the 5 people on this team plus these other people. You can't do that. It's got to be people that are on the existing team, but you can limit it. So can you modify or can you limit to read only? Yes, there are different things that we can do about that. I'll talk about that as we go along, Matt. Good question. Okay. Yes, if you're the team owner, you can set up different things on the channels. Question, can you create sub-channels? Why? The answer to that is no, from another Matt, but no, you can't do sub-channels. Now, there is sub-channels, sort of. It has to do with the structure here, and that's a good segue into what I'm doing next here. See, your questions sometimes actually matter. So if you look here, so to review what we did so far, team is the group of people. Channels are the areas of interest for my particular team. And those areas of interest can be anything, okay? Maybe as a trainer, I set up different channels for each product. I'm a project manager, all right? I'm gonna set up a channel for every project we're working on. Within a channel, then, where all the magic actually takes place is on something called the tabs, okay? In a channel, okay, I am given, by default in any channel, you are given 3 content tabs, and those appear over here. So to bring this over into the team section, you'll see that any team you're part of is gonna have an icon next to it. So in here, I've got my demo team. There are currently 4 channels in this demo team. There is a general channel. There is always a general channel that's created by default. So there's always at least that one. And then here are 3 other channels that I created. I just Excel, Project, and Word, okay? Within every channel, then, there are always 3 basic content tabs that get created. And they are called Posts, Files, and Wiki. This is where all of the activity actually takes place. Nothing, for lack of a better way to say it, nothing actually happens at the teams level or the channel level. Teams and channels are merely organizational units. That's it. We have the team of people and we have the area of interest, which is the channel. Where the stuff happens, where those things occur, are on the content tabs. And for those of us in education. Oh yeah, the education space uses teams too. Sorry, yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Steve. Yeah, I know you're in the education space. Teams is used, education space is usually lumped in with commercial clients. Government is the one that tends to be different, but yes. Oh yeah, I know about the tons of other tabs. I'm getting there. Okay. At a default, just to address what Steve was saying or commenting on, there are always 3 tabs: posts, files, and wiki. Now, if any more tabs are present up there, they've been created by the team owner. And that can be done with this plus sign here. I don't have a lot of time in this introduction class to get into adding tabs and working with other applications. Unfortunately, it's just another can of worms. But you may have other tabs up there. What I'm saying, though, is that for no matter who you are or what version you are using, you're going to get 3 default tabs, okay? Posts, files, and wiki. Anything else on top of that has been customized by whoever is creating, whoever has the product, okay? So just to clarify, to understand defaults, whenever you create a team, there is always a general channel and you cannot get rid of it. On any channel plus the general, so if I create other channels, there are always 3 default tabs: posts, files, and wiki. And those of you who've been using Teams may notice that posts used to be called conversations. Microsoft literally changed the name of that 2 weeks ago, right in the middle of a class that I was teaching. Thank you very much. Anyways, you're going to get those 3. Whether you can add more tabs and stuff up there is, again, up to what you're allowed to do at your particular setup and what your owner has done. Okay, now with those tabs, okay, with that stuff that's up there, the content tabs are where the activity takes place. So nothing happens at the team level, nothing really happens at the channel level. Where all the stuff happens is at the content tab level. So these 3 content tabs, again, posts, files, and wiki. So what are these? So posts is where all the chatter takes place. So posts is nearly identical to chat with a key difference. And we'll talk about that in just a few moments, okay? So the posts part of Teams is nearly identical to one-on-one chats that you would have. The files section of this channel is where I post any files for this channel. Okay, so you can see right now that on the general channel, I've got some files. And if you're in Teams now and looking, here are the handouts for today's class. So if you want these slides, there's not many slides there. If you want the outline if you want this outline that I'm following, you can also download that from Teams. Okay, so that stuff's there. And then there's just a couple other junk things. You don't need to worry about that. I'll talk more about that later. Lastly, there's a wiki. This is like a common note-taking area. It's like OneNote. It's kind of a cross between SharePoint wikis and OneNote. Basically, this is a shared note-taking space. So unlike conversations and posts, which are threaded, this can be kind of a place where maybe you just want to take notes for your team, or maybe you have some things, procedures, or I don't know. It's just you can kind of do anything with it. It's just a basic note-taking space is what it is. Okay. Now, if you've got other tabs beyond this, that's for another class and for another time. All right. All right, so now we need to go on to dealing with the posts, because it's very important to understand how this works, because this is also tricky. Okay, so the posts section is like chat in the sense that this is where I go and start to write stuff. Question: I have a OneNote for a weekly meeting that I use, but other people access the information through Teams. Do they link? Yes. Again, it's possible to integrate OneNote. If you notice here, when I click the plus sign, you can integrate OneNote into Teams. So basically then what you do is that you get a OneNote notebook inside of Teams, and then you can use OneNote or the OneNote tab inside of Teams to collaborate on the same notebook. Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff. That's for like level 2 of this class, or level 3 of doing all that sort of stuff. Remember, today I'm sticking to the basics. There's a lot of basics to get through. Okay, so let's talk about posts. So first off, how is this like chat? Well, it is like chat because it has nearly exact kind of same thing. I come down to the bottom, I write a message, I can format it, I can attach stuff. Notice it's pretty much all the same icons down there. But here's the difference. Here's the difference between posts in a channel and your chats. When I have a chat, this is just a single stream of consciousness between, or a single chat session, right? This is just one chat between me and Chrissy, or me and Matt, or whoever I'm talking with. So it's just one continuous deal. But over in the Teams section, in the posts, this is like a bulletin board where there are multiple different posts. So this is more like Reddit or any message boards that you go on, in that you have separate posts from different people. Now, so what's really important to pay attention to here, because this is easy to screw up, is when you want to reply to somebody, you have to be careful about where you write. And I'm going to make an example out of Chrissy because she made this mistake the other day, and I'm glad she did that. So if you look here, Chrissy and I were having a little conversation the other day. Now, the first thing I want you to note is that this is historical. So the older stuff is at the top and the newest stuff is at the bottom. So look here. Chrissy wrote a message, said, okay, here I am, no idea what I'm doing, but here I am. And then we had a little conversation. But if you notice above that, there's a big smiley face here. And it's like, well, what is this? And you might think, well, maybe that's the first thing that she wrote, and this was the second thing. The reality is, no, that's not the case. Chrissy wrote this message, then she started a new message and wrote with this emoji, and then I actually replied to the correct message. And here's what I want to show you about that. Now, let's say I add some more stuff. Yes, it looks like you did, but you should have done a reply. Okay? Because now, let me go out of that and come back in. Oh, Chrissy, you messed it up by adding, you shouldn't have done that. I was trying to get it so these were separated. Yes, you're welcome for the example, except you just messed up my example. Thank you, I love you. So what was supposed to happen if she had replied, if she had not written this reply, is that this smiley message would be way back up in the history, and this other message would be new down here. Now, by replying to her incorrect message, she bumped it down to the bottom. She's an overachiever. But here's the point. Be very careful about where you write. So let me do it. So let me make a mistake. So who wrote something earlier? All right, Mark wrote a message up here. And maybe I come down here and say, thanks, Mark. Okay, maybe in the context right now, that looks okay. But remember, the newest stuff appears at the bottom. And eventually what might happen is that this thanks mark may work its way up back through the history, and it's going to be this orphan message. It's like, well, what does that have to do with anything? Like, what is that? What's going on there? So the main important point I'm trying to get to here is this, and that is when you are writing messages, making posts in a channel, you must pay attention to the difference between clicking on reply here versus new conversation. And the easiest place to screw that up is the message that's right below, that's right above here. Because notice there is a reply right here, but there's a new conversation. So like if one of you wanted to reply to this message, but you actually come down here and click in start new conversation, they're now going to be separate blocks, and there's the potential that they could end up completely separated from each other. Okay, now depending on your company's settings, you may be able to fix that. So if you do reply in the wrong place, you may be able to delete your message. So Chrissy, I think you can go to your old message up here and you can delete it, and then you can write a new one. Now, again, in a lot of government places, you cannot do that. Government often says, no, you cannot delete messages. Again, FOIA. So it has to stay there. All right, so key point with posts. This is not a single post, it's multiple posts. So therefore, we have all kinds of different stuff going on, and you've got to be careful when you're writing here, whether you mean to reply to an existing post or you mean to start a new conversation down at the bottom. Okay, be very careful about that. Yes, you're going to screw it up. Yes, I screw it up too, all right? It just happens. I deleted it on mine, but it's not showing on yours. Well, there you go. That's client and client server technology. Things don't refresh automatically. It's not dynamic like that. Now, all I had to do, if you notice, if I go out and back in, yeah, there we go. Now it's fixed. So see, there we go. Now it's way back up there. Yeah, it's not instantaneous. And that just has to do with traffic. Now, within a post, while it's here, okay, we can start to see that if there does start to be a lot of replies to a post, the Teams is going to squish that down so that it's not taking up a huge amount of space. So for instance, Chrissy's message here, I can now click here and see there's one new and 4 replies. So if I click on 4 replies, I can see all of the replies. So that's going to expand for me. When I'm done looking at that, I can click collapse all, okay? So when we're looking at these posts, now there could be a whole threaded conversation here. So again, this is kind of like Reddit in the sense that when I'm on Reddit, there are all kinds of posts there. But on Reddit, when you click on a post, it navigates to another page and then you see all the conversation there. In Teams, it doesn't navigate to a new page. It's going to keep everything in this particular block. Okay, and those blocks are going to move around based on activity and history. Unfortunately, right now, there is no way to change the order of these conversations. So if you don't like, some people would, I've seen several people ask me, can this be more like Facebook where it's flipped. So the stuff is at the top, newest at the top and oldest at the bottom. It's not an option right now. So right now, everything, it works backwards from Facebook or Twitter. I mean, every other site right now online does it, going down is older. Here in Teams, it's the other way. The older stuff is up at the top. Okay? Otherwise, everything's the same here, except another thing. So with Teams, another thing that we can do here in our posts is that we can @mention. So for instance, maybe I'm writing a message here and I want to make sure that somebody sees it. And especially on active channels, it might be hard to know that somebody's talking about you or made a post. As you can see already, when you start to, if you get a lot of team members, there could be a lot of posts. Yeah, Steve already did it. Thank you. So when you want to make sure that somebody sees a message, you can @mention them. So what I'm going to do here is I want to get Mark, and I'm going to pick Mark Odell, attention. I can't do that with an apostrophe, but you see what's going on there. So by @mentioning Mark, what happens is what like Steve did for me here, is that I'm actually going to get a notification. It's going to put an @ over here, so I really see it, and it will also do something in my activity feed. And if you're not in Teams when that happens and you've got the settings configured, which I'll show you in a little bit, you will get an email. You don't get email notifications from Teams if you're currently logged into Teams. Email is only a last resort. Okay, so if you're wondering about that in general, like, well, what if I don't check very frequently? What if I don't use Teams very much? Okay, that's fine. You can set it so you get email notifications, but you won't get email notifications if you're logged into Teams. Okay, that's just, again, too much overhead, too much traffic. Okay, so I can @mention somebody to make sure that they heads up, hey, somebody's talking about you. Okay, that's what we're doing. The other thing that you can do, and now this can be limited by an owner, is that you can get the attention of the entire team. So if I went @demo and do that, that would actually notify everybody on the team that I've made a post. Now, that can be turned off by the owner so that general people can't do that, because you can see that that could be quickly abused by people. So again, this is another case of don't be the boy or girl who cried wolf. This is something to use very sparingly when you want to make sure that everybody sees it. But if I did that and then wrote the message and hit enter, everyone would get a notification, either a banner or something in their activity feed that lets them know that there's a message that they should be aware of. Okay, now that's a good feature if I was a project manager. If I'm in charge of this, if I'm in charge of my team and I want to make sure they all see something, yes, an @mention for the team is a really good thing to do. Okay. Overall, with @mentions, if you use them, make sure you need to use them. By the way, I can @mention multiple people as well. If I wanted to tag Mark and Lori and Matt and Jate, I can just, @ symbol, which just like Twitter and Facebook, right? Just like on Facebook, when you tag somebody, it's literally exactly the same idea. Are you seeing how much this, in some ways, you're like, oh, wow, this is really just kind of like things I'm already using. Yep, it's not by accident, okay? You know, the Microsoft of today is not the Microsoft of yesteryear, where they would want everything to be their own way and not be the same as everybody else and blah, blah, blah. They very much learned from that. And they try to keep a lot of things similar to things you're already using. That way you don't have to learn a lot of new stuff. Okay. All right. So again, tons more I could say about messages, but I want to move on to at least some stuff about files so you understand how file collaboration works. Okay. So let's talk file collaboration for a little bit. So with files, obviously one of the main things we want to do with a team especially is that file collaboration. And again, this goes back to don't email stuff when you're trying to collaborate, right? Because if I have 5 project managers and I have a project plan and I email that to all 5 project managers, what do I have? I got a mess, right? Now I got 6 copies out there, right? 6 copies. There's their 5 and my 1. And it's impossible for all of us to work together unless, you know, it's just a mess. Don't get me started. And SharePoint partially solves that. If you're a SharePoint user, there are ways on SharePoint to do that stuff. And by the way, doing a SharePoint class tomorrow. And SharePoint's an excellent medium for that collaboration. Now, here's the clever thing. We can also share files in Teams and collaborate on them together here in Teams. What is really cool about that? Excuse me. The file storage for Teams is literally just SharePoint. Teams, when you create a team, creates a SharePoint site in the background to support a lot of the functions of the team. And that's why I'm doing the SharePoint class tomorrow. But so that you can get more familiar with SharePoint. But these 4 files that you see right here in this channel, these aren't stored in Teams. They're actually stored in a SharePoint site, which I can actually get to if you look. When I'm in here, if you click on the 3-dot menu, there's an open in SharePoint here. And if I do that, I've got a problem here on my computer. All right, so it's not going to open up on mine for silly reasons. It has to do with my email client. But if I did do that, it would open up the SharePoint site where this is located. That's the first time I've run into that here. I have to figure out a way around that. Anyways, so this file storage is just SharePoint in the background. It's actually really kind of cool. All right, so let's talk about file collaboration. So there are 2 ways that you can post files to make them available for your team members. One is that you can come to the file section and you can literally upload a file. Okay, so if I come in here, I click upload, it's just going to open up my local file navigation. I can find a document here. Of course, those 2 are already there. So let me just put in another thing here. Here's something from, actually, let me put up these tips and tricks. That's another good one, file that I created. So I can just open that. Now these are PDFs. We really can't collaborate on them, but there you go. I just uploaded the file. Okay. Another way that I can add files for us to collaborate is to simply attach them to a conversation. So I can come down here and say, hey, everyone, let's collaborate on this file. And then I click the paperclip icon. And in this case, I'm going to upload from my computer again. And let me find, I need like a Word document of some sort. Let me go back into Teams. You know what, I'm going to upload, I'll upload the outline for this class in Word. All right, let's open that. So here's the Word version of that. Now, in this case, by writing that message and attaching the file, this is going to appear as a post in the channel. So there you go. Now we can actually have, oops, now I got to click that. There we go. Now we can actually have a chat going on about that file. Okay, so not only did I post the file, but there can also be a conversation about that. So you could be making comments and stuff about the document right from here. Now there's additional possibilities with this that I'm going to get to in just a second. So there's that. Now let's talk editing that file. Great, Scott. You posted the file. I want to actually look at it or edit it. You can either do it from here, or you can go to the Files section and access it from here. Okay, so there's all the files. Now, here are my options. So let me go back to here. When you click on the three-dot menu for a file, you're actually going to see three basic options here. Edit in Teams, open in Desktop, open in Browser. So let's take a look at these. If I say edit in Teams, what this is actually doing is it's actually doing two things. It's actually opening the document up in Word Online, which you'll see in just a moment. So here's Word Online. And then secondly, that conversation or post that I just started, you'll notice there's a button here that says conversation. See this? If I click that, the conversation from the channel about the file is displayed over on the side. So I can both work on the document and we can chat about the file in one window, okay? And I can see that Chrissy's got the file open, okay? And this is a topic for a whole other class is, how does Office 365 collaboration work? But basically right now, all of you could be, a bunch of us could be in this file. We could be editing. We could talk about it. I could say, really? Really? Is it that good? Okay, and we can have a chat over here. I could also, Chrissy and I could both be editing the document here at the same time. So I could be in the document making changes. Now this is different than document commenting that I would do in Word. If you're using the revisions features, like accept and reject changes and you're using comments, that's different. The Word comments feature, those comments would be inside the document. What we've got going on over here is that this is a Teams conversation about the document. That's different than Word commenting, okay? Use whatever works best for you. I would say Word comments would be good stuff about things inside the document. The conversations over here, yeah, so there we go. I just prefer bullets. That might be a good offhanded things to say, whereas, doing other stuff over here. I prefer bullets. Yeah, bullets are good for some stuff. I hate looking at a document that's got like 20,000 bullets on it, but that's just me. Okay. All right. I know I'm moving quickly, but there's a lot to go here. All right. So I'm going to close out of that. Now let's close the document. Now, another option here, when I click on the three-dot menu, I'm actually going to go to the third option. So this is, I know this is weird. Instead of saying edit in Teams, I'm going to say open in browser. Essentially what that does, all right, why is Firefox causing these problems? All right, so I was not expecting this. Apparently Firefox, for some reason, because Firefox is my default browser on here. That's why that's happening. Okay. Yeah, so what should happen there is if I do open in browser, it's the same as what I just did before. You just don't get the conversations part. So the open in browser is the same as edit in Teams, except two things. Number one, the document will open up in your browser window still in Word Online, but you won't get the conversation part of it because now you're outside of Microsoft Teams. Otherwise, it's the same deal, okay? So that's something I'll have to fix for the next time I do this. All right, so if you did edit in browser, you'd get this same view, you'd get the same Word Online, but you won't get the conversation feature because now you're outside of Teams. It looks like editing in SharePoint. Well, the thing is that editing in SharePoint is using the Office Online applications. So you're right, but you're wrong. Because what's happening in because remember what I just said. All of these files, oops, where'd my Teams window go? Did I accidentally close Teams? Oh, goodness. Let's bring Teams back up. There we go. I accidentally closed Teams. Come back. Okay, so as I was saying, think about it though. Who said like editing in SharePoint? Final Fantasy VII? No, I do not have Final Fantasy. I have Roller Coaster Tycoon. Oh, the scene, that's from Tron. Anyways, think about it, Matt. The editing in the file storage in Teams is SharePoint, so it's the same deal. Okay, it's literally the same thing. Sorry, I should have clicked close here instead of that up there. That was the mistake I made. Okay. All right, now the third option for a file, open in desktop app. So that is opening up that file in the regular version of a product. So if using Word online does not have all the features and stuff that you want, and you need the real version of Office or of Word or Excel or PowerPoint or whatever to work on your document, then here you go. Now, if you're using Office 365 Pro Plus, Office 2019 or Office 2016, you can have multiple people still in this document working together. So even though I've opened this up in desktop, I can still see that Steve Barker is in this document, and we can be collaborating even though I'm in the desktop version and he's in the online. Okay, but you said it was different. What did I say was different? Sorry, Matthew, I just want to make sure I'm clear. What do you mean what was different? The file storage for Teams is SharePoint. There is no difference here. Okay, when I go to the files here, this is literally actually SharePoint storage in the background. Is that the same as opening in SharePoint? Yes. Oh no, two different things. This open in SharePoint here would be like actually going to a SharePoint site. That's what the open in SharePoint is. That's not open the document in SharePoint. That means open up the whole site in SharePoint. Yeah, sorry. It didn't work. Yeah, sorry. I know I was a little confusing. Open in SharePoint in Teams means take this file library and actually open up the file library of SharePoint. Okay. That's what that is. You never open up a document in SharePoint. I mean, you launch it, but what is actually happening, and we'll do this more in tomorrow's class if you come to the SharePoint class tomorrow, what you're doing in SharePoint when you open a document is you're launching it into Word or Excel or PowerPoint online. Yeah, that's different. Sorry for the confusion there. It's just because my default browser is set to Firefox here. I think I need to, I'll probably have to change that for other classes. Oh, see, and here I got a chat message. Who's chatting? Okay, I knew it was Tron. Of course it is. I'm still a fan. Yes, and there's still Tigger here as well. He's just not my wallpaper, but yes, there's a Tigger phone behind me. Okay, we need to get back to files. So the key really collaboration deal here with posting files in Teams is that now we're not emailing stuff to each other. Is that when I post it here, this document is here for all of us to work on. It's the same document, so we're not emailing it to each other, and we can all work on that document pretty much in real time. So I can have a Word document here. I can have an Excel spreadsheet. I can have a PowerPoint. I can have all those types of things here, and we can use all the functionality of SharePoint and the functionality of Teams and collaborate on these documents in real time to get together and accomplish things much more quickly and cut down on this whole business of multiple versions of files and emailing and okay, everybody email your changes back to me and I'll compile it and then we'll send it back out. You eliminate all that by putting it here. Okay, and again, the file storage for a team is basically SharePoint. If I could get it to work here because my settings are different, if I clicked on this open in SharePoint, what I would end up with, I can open up one of them over here, is, let me go to this SharePoint app, is that I would basically end up in a SharePoint library. Actually, I think I can open it from here. Yep, I can open it from here. Let's go to the demo site. I can still get to it, I just gotta go the long route. So let me go to the demo site. So if that open in SharePoint worked properly from Teams for me, you would actually end up, one second, I'm almost there. Everything's loading slow because we're all overloading the internet. Let me go to documents. Let's go to documents. Whoa, really slow. Go to documents one more time. Come on, there we go. Now it's loading. So what I want you to see here, once this library loads, do you see here in this library, here's Excel, General, and Word. I need to fix this. See these? Those are the same as these here. there's a discrepancy because of my browser setup here. I got to fix it. But General, Excel, Project, and Word. General, Excel, Project, and Word. This says Project 1. I'll fix that later. Okay? And if I went into the General folder here, here are all of the files. So this is the same as this. Okay? Every channel has its own file folder in a library of a SharePoint site for that team/channel. Okay? All right. Lots more stuff I'd like to show you there. We're getting low on time, so let's jump over to some last stuff here about your settings. So as I mentioned, up under your avatar menu up here in the corner, there's a bunch of stuff here, but what's most interesting for us at a basic level is this right here with the settings. So let's go into settings. Now, this is where you'll see a difference between if you're using the web version or the desktop version of Teams. The web version is going to have less stuff here. The desktop version is going to have more. There's a bunch of general settings here for things that you can do in Teams, obviously. I'm not going to worry about privacy for right now. The one that's most important, I at least want to talk about at a basic level, notifications. So you have seen during class today, during this session, that as things have happened, I get little pop-ups down here in the corner, or there's things that happen in the activity feed. You can configure all of that from here. You can decide, do you want what's called a banner? A banner is that thing down in the corner, okay? I know we would think of banners as something big across the top, but banner is the stuff that shows up in the bottom corner. You can also get emails. You can turn certain things off. You can say, I only want a banner, only show it in my activity feed, whatever. Remember with the emails, like I mentioned, you're only going to get an email if you're not currently logged into Teams. Okay, that's the only reason you'd get those. So if you've got Teams running, you're going to get the banner or the activity feed notification. You'll only get email if you're not currently logged into Teams. And it's also not usually right away. It's usually there's a delay. I don't know. I don't remember what it is, but there might be an hour or 2 or 24-hour delay on that. I have to look that up. I don't remember what it is. Okay, here's my advice. Go with the defaults. If you go in here and try to turn off too much of this to start, you might miss out on important things. So Scott's advice is leave the settings the way they are, and if it does become annoying over time, then come in and change them. So now you know where to find them. I would just be afraid that if you eliminate a lot of the notifications, you may miss out on important stuff, okay? So there's where you manage those. There's stuff about devices here. So if you're using a headset like me, you can configure that. There's stuff about apps. We did not get into apps and app permissions here, a whole other stuff. And again, the calls section is completely irrelevant if we're not using logged into some sort of call system. Okay. Whew. All right. Just about a time here. We're going to do Q&A. Just hold on to your questions because I'm going to end the recording and then we'll go into Q&A. So let me jump back to my slides, and I got just a couple more slides. I'll wrap up the official recorded part. And then we'll get into more Q&A. So we'll stick around. So you want more help? There's a couple of great sites here. Go to Microsoft's site at support.office.com and click on the Teams icon, and there is a ton of stuff out there. If you're a bit more techie, go to docs.microsoft.com and you'll find a lot more. Again, click on Microsoft Teams from the list, and there's, again, more help and stuff out there. Some of it's a bit more technical, but also a great resource there. So I would definitely take a look at those. You want to see other videos that I've done, just go to YouTube and search for my name. There's only about 7 videos out there. This is my first one for Teams, but there's some other stuff there. After today's class, you can point your friends to that channel and you can watch this training, and the other ones that I'm going to do this week, we'll post them all there. So for you folks watching on YouTube or watching this recording later, thank you for attending today. I hope you maybe learned a little something new about Teams, and hope to see you all at future classes. For the rest of you, I'm going to end the recording, and we'll just jump right into general Q&A. So again, thank you for attending, and I appreciate your attendance.